everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About That, a Union University podcast. In this week's conversation, we are joined by a student athlete by the name of Tristan Kelly. He has such a remarkable story to share, and we are so grateful. Thank you always for listening. Sit back, enjoy the show. Okay, welcome to the show, Tristan Kelly.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fran.
Cluck and I are so happy to have you as a guest.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about with this one.
Yeah, we sure do.
We sure do. I am so interested and curious about 1,000 things.
All right.
About you. And it's funny because I think last year Ted said your name several times and I didn't know who you were. And I feel kind of bad about that now.
You should feel bad about that.
And then now I'm like, we're BFFs and we're recording a podcast together. And I think the world of you. So I'm so glad to have you here today.
I think the world of you too.
So when did you become aware of Tristan Kelly? Was it because of me or was it his like ascension as like a union show pony?
Both.
Because it does happen, dude.
Yeah, when you become a unionite.
Are you tired of show pony work? Because you're kind of getting the big platform here now at Union.
What do you mean by show pony?
Well, at any Christian college, I think there ends up with like a half a dozen people that the university decides that they're going to trot you out. You get the trot out. So it's like, it's family weekend. It's like big recruitment weekend.
Yeah.
We're trotting these same 6 people onto the
Get everyone's favorite Irishman. Yeah.
No, I know it. We needed an Irishman. And you've filled in admirably. But no, it's not just because you're Irish. You bring a lot of other things to the table. But where are you at? Scale of 1 to 10 on show pony work. 10 being I love it. 1 being I hate it with a white hot passion. Where are you?
I would say a solid 7.
There you go.
Yeah, like I like it, but it's kind of funny because there'll be a lot of people who are like, they'll come to me and it's like, oh yeah, we seen you in this. Like I came up and I was sitting with some freshmen because they were outside strumming guitar and I love people when they sing. So I was like, oh yeah, let me go over and chat. And they're like, wait, you're in the Unionite? And I was like, yeah, I suppose it was. And then it's this thing where it's like people know you don't know them. And they're like, oh, hey Tristan. You're like, hey man, like you just don't know what to say.
This is this one's deal all the time.
Oh no.
Everybody knows Cluck.
We have a good time. Tristan and I have a good time. We kind of had our first union experiences together. Like for him as a student, and I was moving my kid in on moving day, and I ran into him. You know, we shared a moment on the steps of what dorm was that?
It was right. It was the dorms are right.
So it's right hall.
Okay.
And it's moving day, so it's contractually got to be like 112 degrees that day with like 95% humidity. So we're moving in, we're sweating, right? Me and this guy, he's a cross country guy, so he's in shape. Me, not so much, but we're pouring with sweat.
Oh gosh.
And we see this dude, God bless him, this dude in a 3-piece suit and one of these hats, and the dude was like just enough younger than me, and like his jawline was better, and he was handsome, and he was driving like a vintage motorcycle dressed like Peaky Blinders in his 3-piece suit. And I turned to this guy who I didn't know from Adam. I didn't know he was Irish. I didn't know who he was. And I said, look at that guy. He thinks he's better than us. You know?
Yeah. And I remember we shared a moment just being
and we shared a moment about it. What's up with this guy? It's 112. He's wearing a 3-piece suit. Well, I mentioned that on one of my other podcasts, and the guy chirped me, and then we became best friends. His name's Robert Lane, Bobby Lane, taught here for a while. Then he moved to Scotland to do more graduate work. But I love Bobby Lane. We became thick as thieves, and Tristan shared that moment with us. So it's apropos now that your senior year, we get to kind of close it out together on this podcast.
Oh, don't say that.
No, we're not closing out. We're not saying goodbye yet.
Not yet.
No, not yet. So how did you end up here? Like from where you grew up to having that moment with me that was so special for you on the
of course. Just being in your presence was unbelievable. Like getting to Union is a bit of like a how did this even happen story. I started, so the main avenue was running. I grew up in Ireland, obviously, and I grew up with a loving family, everything like that was good. So when I was at school, I wanted to train to get better at soccer, and my coach told me, he's like, all right, I want you to get your fitness up, so go and do a race or something, because I wanted to get more game time. So I went and I did a race the day after Christmas. It's called Greencastle 5 Mile. I've been running it for years. And I did that one. I really liked it. And did the next one, the next one, the next one. And then my coach Connor came up to me and he said, look, you're 15. You're doing like 10-mile races. He's like, you need to chill out. He's like, let me come under my wing. And let me take you there. And we kind of started training together, and his brother Jack was the person who instilled into me to go to America and pursue an education while doing athletics. So in his family, in Connor's family, there was a ton of people who came here. His sister, actually, Tony, she competed for Lee a couple years ago. So we kind of had a link. He had been familiar with the process and stuff, but roughly I'd say at the beginning of my junior year, I started reaching out to coaches, and then senior year I got really serious. But kind of when COVID happened, it was a really difficult period, because like you're trying with running, it's very linear to get recruited. You're like, I run this time. Does that work? Does it not? But if I didn't have races during that time, so it was kind of up in the air. But I reached out to a ton of coaches, and I got about 20 offers in the end. And I was sitting there with a ton of offers, had been on so many Zoom calls. I was like, this is cool. But I kind of boiled it down to two choices, and it was one other school, and it was Union. And the thing that stuck out to me about Union was what Coach Bell was like. So the first thing I remember him saying was, well, first of all, the funniest thing was I looked on, it was just bright ginger hair, like, but
kindred spirit.
Yeah, kindred spirit. But when I was talking to him, the thing he said was, Tristan, I care way more about how you develop as a person here than you do athletically in the next 4 years. And he just showed really good care, and he met me where I was at. You know, I was 6 seconds off the time he wanted, and he was like, look, I believe in you. So because of that, I kind of packed up my life into 2 suitcases and came here. I knew nothing about the school. The only thing is I seen basically this photo.
Wow.
I knew there was a huge library, and that was all I knew about Jackson. And then, I hopped on a plane and came halfway across the world.
Okay, how scared were you? Because that's totally different. We were talking about the fact that Ted has connection. Are you from Michigan?
My wife is, but we lived there for like 15 years. Yeah.
And I think that's far away. To, go from Michigan to West Tennessee. Yeah. You were a little bit farther than that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're young. Like, I don't know how I would feel as a parent saying, well, goodbye. Good luck with it all.
Well, my mom was brokenhearted.
Oh, I bet.
So she was, tears. And there's a part in Dublin Airport, and it's so funny. Well, it's funny, but like you see them, and then you go around the corner, and then I just remember being like, I'm not going to see them for 4 months. And this is the longest time I've been outside home. But I guess for me, the reason why I was willing to do this was, first of all, I was like, okay, I can do a university degree and, compete, which is awesome. But it's also like, back home, everyone has the same story. It's like, you grow up in my small town, Oma. You live there. You go to school in Belfast. You kind of get hammered for 3 or 4 times a week. And that's, you just do that. You get a dud degree. You come back and you work some retail job you hate for the rest of your life. You live for the weekends and you die back in Oma. So for me, it was like, I want to do something with my life. So I was the first person in my family to go to college. And I was like, I want to do something. I want to experience the world. And this was an avenue to do that.
So what were your notions of both America and Tennessee before arriving here?
So when I heard Union was in Tennessee, like, for those who don't know, like, Billy Bell, he's like so Southern, like, strong accent, like, hey guys, how's it going? My name's Bailey Bell. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I'm going into Heckland, like, this is gonna be a bunch of hillbillies and stuff. And when you think of America,
and you got here and you realized that was
true.
It's
true.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And then I met you, and I was like, what's a hipster doing in the middle of the hillbillies? But with America, it's so strange because like Europe just kind of judges like all the tourists, and touristy Americans are the worst.
Yeah.
But like, I come here and then my perspective completely changes. So, but yeah, it's kind of cool. I just kind of came in with no notion or whatever. I remember I got off the plane in Chicago and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then I walked up and I was like, do you know where this place is? And the guy was from Atlanta. I knew nothing he was saying. I was like, what is this man saying to me?
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's cool how there's so many different basic like Americans, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's
for
so
sure.
many different parts, but it's cool.
I just like hearing you say the word school.
No, I love it. So did you like pregame with American media before you came here? Did you crush some shows and movies to get you like ready for American culture? Or?
So my favorite movie is Forrest Gump.
Really?
So when I heard I was going to the South, I was like, oh, this is good.
Oh yeah, man.
Gonna be in Forrest Gump land. So I liked American culture. I know a lot of people back home, they kind of see it as like arrogant or Americans are ignorant or whatever. But I liked American culture, and I was kind of like, we'll see what happens. I literally came in with no expectations, just being like, I came here just to run, and that was pretty much it.
I think that was one of the best things about just your persona when I met you that freshman year. You didn't have a lot of freshmen when they're starting college. They have a little reticence about them, and they have a sense of like, I'm afraid to try things because what if I fail, and even social things. But you had a real openness to the whole experience that I think was kind of refreshing. And I actually think it was a tone setter for people in your peer group because they saw you trying things and reaching out to people and just being curious. And I think that sort of attitude can be catching. It can almost be contagious in a good way on a college campus.
And I think especially at Union, like I think one thing at Union that I do see a lot is everyone thinks the same, right? Everyone's kind of came from similar backgrounds, right? And especially with the international community, seeing all these diverse different cultures coming in and experiencing new things. And I know with my culture, like I'm a very direct, blunt person. One of the funniest things was when I first came here, I cursed like a sailor. I didn't have exactly the greatest moral mindset. And who was my roommate? A homeschooled pastor's kid called Micah Wynn. And within the first 2 days, it was like, hey, man, can you stop cursing so much? And it's like, but that experience, like, first of all, he rubbed off on me and my journey and my faith, but also, like, it exposed him to the worldly side, you know, like we exist more than this bubble. And I think that's where like international students are priceless. It's just that they bring so much to the table in terms of different views and perspectives.
I agree so much. And I'm so glad we have athletics at Union for that. You know, it brings a needed bit of diversity to campus. And I love when, and you were so good at this, you're not the only one, but building a bridge between the world of athletics and the world of like regular kid at Union. And I think we need more of that. So definite hat tip to you. And
thanks, man. I
know that inroads have been made in just that happening in perpetuity at Union. And I think I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah. Definitely.
I love Michael Wynn. I've known him. I knew him for 3 years as a student, and I didn't know that you all lived together.
He's my Jonathan.
That's the best.
He's unbelievable. He came all the way from Durham to come see me this weekend.
That's fantastic.
He's my best friend for life. Like
I love that.
Love him so much.
Okay, talk to us about your faith and what you came from, what that was like. What faith did you have? Did you have any? Did you grow up in church? What was that like? And then Micah being your roommate, that pastor's kid who told you, hey, I would love for you to not, cuss like a sailor so much. Talk to us about your faith journey, because I think that people coming into Union, somewhere we just all believe that everybody's coming from some sort of similar background when it comes to their religious experience.
Yeah, of course.
And we know that's not true. We know that. The longer we're here, the more conversations we have, the more students we get to interact with. We know that's not true. But I think you have a great story to tell.
Yeah, sure. So starting off with my life, I was raised as a Catholic back in Ireland. And I had some experience with my faith, but what I would say was the key difference was that I had faith in a system, but not intentional relationship with God, right? I had people in my life who were religious, like my granny and my mom, who would, take me to mass, and we were dedicated in the sense I got christened, I had my communion, I had a confirmation and stuff like that. But there was so many parts about the relationship between me and Jesus that I didn't really know of, right? So I was an altar boy, I did all that there stuff, but growing up, I would have been considered devout because I went to mass, I went to confession, and I did all these things. And although they shaped me, I didn't really understand what this personal relationship I was being called to have. And because of that, I wasn't really aware of the repercussions of my sin and kind of how I was in my sinful nature. So I remember right before coming out here, there's a thing, you take an oath of chastity when you're in confirmation, since you say you're not going to drink until you're 18. But as soon as I turned 18, which is June 1st, that summer before I came here, I got blackout drunk so many times. And I continued to live that sinful life, and I felt a little bit convicted about it, but I'd go to mass and that'd be good, and I wouldn't really think much about it. So I had struggled with sin, but my eyes weren't open to what the sin was. And when I get here, obviously there's just so much change. Like back home in Ireland, to be a Protestant and to be a Catholic are two completely different things than here. it's nothing to do as much about what you believe theologically and way more to do with where you're from, your heritage, your culture. So when I came to this institution, I didn't know it was Christ-centered. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know it was a Baptist institution. But when I got here, I remember being in chapel and stuff like that. And I remember sitting with people from my Welcome Week group. And they were closing their eyes and they were singing. And someone was speaking. And I think this was a sermon. I wasn't sure. And initially, I kind of actually really enjoyed it. And as you said, was open to it and absorbed it. And I started absorbing this culture. And here brings one of the funniest parts of my freshman year. So I get into my Old Testament class. I was actually excited for it. I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. And I get in there, and my teacher is Dr. Albanese.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Albanese just came off teaching PhD level classes in England.
Wow.
And now he's coming, he's teaching freshman Tristan. He's never read the Bible, right? And in his class, I was forced so much to really work at reading the Bible, exposing the Bible, spending time in the Bible. And I had such a convicted heart about it. Like, I would literally spend 6 hours on what this class, and then like an elective, like a requirement for my degree. I spent 6 hours every time doing the homework. So I was in the library all the time. And that's kind of why I got my first Bible. I got my first Bible at Ted's church. Pastor Lee Tankersley 3 years ago was like, hey, if open your Bibles, it's this here page. If you don't have one, take one. So I took it and I still use it today. But
so good.
It was like, I just experienced all this stuff, and I was forced to think about God. I was forced to think, like, what do you think about this? And in that, I had a little bit of an identity crisis, right? Because my whole life, I'd been told my values in running, right? Your value is the time you run. That's why I'm here, right?
Yeah, right.
I was told I have value for the time I run, given a scholarship for it, and that's my identity, right? Yeah. So when I get to my end of my freshman year, or my freshman fall semester, I'm continuing to have these things about God. But with Micah continuing to pour into me and stuff like that, I think I reached this point of bitterness where I was like, you know what, like, I don't want to become a Protestant. I don't want this relationship because I know this is where I'm from and I'm a Catholic. Then I went through this really, really difficult time in my life, between just personal stuff, getting injured, and then getting home and my grandfather passing away. And I just kind of got to this point where I was completely broken. And when I came back for my spring semester, I wanted nothing to do with God. And it's like I felt this calling, like Micah being so genuine and so nice in a time where I was like, you know what, I don't want anything to do with you. Yet he kept on coming back, kept on inviting me to Calvary, my church now. But I would walk in just like rebellion. I'd be like, God, I know you want me here, and I know you want me to go there, but I'm not going to go there. And I'd go to St. Mary's, and I would not care about being there, but I'd go there because I want to rebel. But in the middle of my spring semester, kind of what happened was God, through this whole period and through these trials, had broken me down to lay the foundation of Christ in my heart. And Micah, who, as I said, despite how many times I closed the door and spat in his face, always came back. He continued to pour into me. And when I got back home after my first year, I kind of remember sitting here being like, God is calling me. And I had this like renewed hope in my heart, right? And I got there and I was like, okay, is this a union thing, or is this like God actually seeking this relationship? And I was back home. It was before I came back to Union, and it was August 6th, and I was in a nightclub and I was drinking, and I was having a party for me leaving. And I just remember sitting there being like, I don't need this anymore. So I quit alcohol, and all I could think about is getting back and telling my college pastor at Calvary, I want to be baptized. So I got baptized 2 years ago, roughly. And like, it's just, honestly, like, when people talk about my testimony, I'm like, this is just a testament to how people can work, and how people have, despite all I've done, despite all my wrong, they continue to love me. And God has just blessed me with such amazing people in my life, and one of those being Micah Wynn. So yeah, like, God has pursued me, and even now in this period of time where, you know, it's not always linear, you know, you have your ups and downs in your faith. It's like, I'm just constantly reminded, God loves you, right? Yeah. And that's something that I have now reached the point where I'm like, I want to share that with others, to know that you're loved, you know, you're loved by God. And I'm in a place of complete dependence on him, and I'm just blown away by what he's done.
So good. So. Let me ask you this, because I had a conversation a week ago, I think. I was walking down a hallway, and a freshman athlete, we ran into each other when I turned a corner, okay? And he is a freshman athlete, and I know him, and I asked him how he was, and he said, I'm okay, but I'm really struggling with something. And this is a strong guy. He's walking with the Lord, okay? So he's a believer. And he said, I'm really struggling with something. I'm struggling with my identity.
Yeah.
And I looked at him. I'm going to give it a different sport. And I said, let me tell you something. It is not in soccer. It's not that. That is not your identity. And so now that you're a senior and you've got all this time to reflect on your own personal journey and your own growth with being an athlete, but identifying yourself truly as a follower of Christ. Like there's always a little irritation there between the two.
Course.
And we that's not mine. I'm not an athlete, but I got my own identity struggles.
You're in the circle, right?
So for an athlete that is just really trying to wrestle that out, what advice would you give to this young freshman that is really trying to figure out who he is at Union as a person, as an athlete, as somebody that's just got all these demands put on them, and just all of a sudden, like, you don't feel confident anymore, like you don't know who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. What do you say to him?
I mean, like, I've been walking with Christ for the last 2 years. I have literally just got over that. Like, despite me walking and having this faith, like, I still struggled so much with finding my identity in my sport. And it was actually back home over the summer where, like, I had one of the best training cycles of my life. And I was super fit. I was like, this is amazing. But then I get back here and I'm just like, none of it matters. Like, this life is so temporal. Your time at Union is so temporal. I was in his shoes 3 years ago. Now I'm a senior. And what I would say to a person, and this doesn't even just include athletics, this includes anything, is that store up treasures in heaven. Realize to yourself, what is it that I identify in? And the answer has to be Christ. For any believer, it has to be Christ. And it's a hard thing to wrestle. And how I've kind of approached it and how I've changed my mind about it is, I used to think of this as God and my identity in sports is separate, right? I used to have my hands open to God, but it'd be kind of like this, right? Be kind of like, okay, God, I'm giving you my life, but let me keep my sport to myself. And the next thing you know, these idols, your sport that you love, right, that God's gifted you with, it's fighting for the throne of your heart with God, right? And what I would say is, with your approach to sport, seek to glorify God through it. So if this person's in a team sport, seeking to grow that team and fellowship together. If it's an individual sport, or even if it's just individual performance, realizing that you're called to much more, you know. And if anything, this mind shift that I've realized, it's actually made my performance better, because instead of now being controlled by results or what I do, I realize that my identity is in Christ. My knees are going to give out sometime. They feel like they're giving out. We just, before we started, talked about how I'm 21. I feel like I'm 35.
I'd kill to be 35. Just for the record.
There you go.
For the record.
Right.
But yeah, it's just find godly people to pour into you, and seek mentorship, and realize, you're much more than just, God loves you. He didn't just give you, he just didn't give you who you are just for a sport. He gave you because he loves you.
Right.
I think that's great advice for non-athletes at Union too. You know, so many of our students, and you see this, Fran, in your role, like they want to place a numeric value on how they're doing, and they want to, they have to succeed, or else it's a zero-sum game. But we know that in God's economy, he doesn't work that way. And I think what's especially cool about Tristan's story is the Word of God, you know, so sitting in that Albanese class, grappling through scripture.
And let's just go on the record and say, he's not an easy professor.
No.
mean,
Dr. Albany's
straight
killed
for the.
me.
Yeah, that's hard.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people. That dude did not go light this first semester here.
Also
He's
a Union
notorious
show
for it.
pony, by the way. You guys
Also
could
a
compare
Union
notes
show
on that
pony, yeah.
with good reason.
Take his class. Take his class.
Yeah, definitely take his class. But no, I mean, the power of the word not returning void, right? The power of the local church. I mean, the Lord has given us these things, and they're good gifts.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that you found both of those things at Union, and the Lord found you through those things, I think is a sweet story.
Do people gravitate towards you because of your this show pony?
No.
Yeah. I mean, like, are people? Yes, people on your team are probably drawn to you and your leadership and your faith and how outspoken you are and just your understanding of who you are as a student athlete. But do other students, are they like, who is this Tristan Kelly guy? How do you feel like your influence is as a whole across Union? Because you are making a difference. People in the non-athletic world, I know, are paying attention to how you're living your life out loud as a young 21-year-old who's only been walking with the Lord for a couple of years. Do you sense that? Do you feel that?
I find this really funny because before I came to Union, I was actually introverted, and then I was forced to be extroverted.
Look at you now.
But I don't know. That's a good question. I would say I definitely feel like throughout my years, I've been able to like get into that and find different circles. And yes, of course, like I love talking to people. I could talk up to a brick wall. But I think for me, it's just like the biggest compliment I can get from any person is saying like, Tristan's that's a godly man. Or it's like, that person's heart reflects Christ, or you can see Christ's love overflowing from him. That is what I want to be realized, because if you go back to my hometown, it's Tristan the runner. Tristan, how's Tristan going in the running?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I seek out, because as we've kind of talked about, is that Union's such a beautiful place because it's so Christian and it has so many wonderful things about it. But one thing that I notice is that it is very easy to come here and just kind of grow content. Very easy to just kind of, not an internal journey of sanctification, continue to grow. But when you reach into that real world, it's like, okay,
yeah,
things can get hard. But for me, it's just when I want to talk to people and when I reach out to them, it's because I want them to know that they're loved. And like, I'm a caring person. I love when someone stops and talks to me and appreciates me. And I think if I can do that for anyone else,
that's good.
For sure.
It's good to do.
Yeah, I think in the same way that, in Ireland, you saw a lot of kind of nominal Catholics. We have the same thing down here.
Of course.
We have a lot of cultural Christianity in the sense that people think because they come from an affluent two-parent home that they're Christian and they grew up in the South, so they must be Christian, but they have no affection for Christ in their heart. The likes of which you acquired here, and that's what we want for all of our students, And I think something you bring to the campus, and you wouldn't say this about yourself, that's so needed here too. You're just a social catalyst. You're someone who's not afraid to go engage somebody in conversation and ask questions and be genuinely curious. And I think in the kind of heavily mediated electronic moment that we're in, like that sort of horsepower is rare, and we need more of that here too. So we appreciate, that aspect of what you brought to campus, for sure.
It's not me, it's Christ in me. Yeah. And I'm not perfect by no means.
No, for sure.
I struggle with even that. There sometimes I fall into that stagnatism. And even I've just came through a period where over the summer I felt stagnant in my faith, and coming back I've kind of realized how dependent I am on God to give me strength. But yeah, like that is one thing that like I feel convicted about, is that like I want people to realize that their faith isn't something you can just like be idle in. And it's preparing yourself for like, okay, you're here for 4 years when you're getting poured into, but then you go into a secular job, then you go into the real world. And for me, it's like, okay, I want to not only just grow in community with people, but walk through life together so that we can equip each other. Iron sharpens iron. And I'm curious. I like asking honest questions and being genuine, because there's nothing grinds my gears more than just you meeting someone, like, hey, you're not being real with me. You're not being authentic. You know what I mean? Right. So that's kind of who I am. I'm a very open book that way. So.
I love it. Okay, it's your senior year. Graduation is coming.
How
How are you going to wrap this thing up? How do you feel about graduating, what happens next? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I have some idea. So I have anti-senioritis right now. I'm trying to get involved in as many things as possible. I'm now an RA. I'm getting involved in my church pretty much a lot with Calvary, and kind of the next couple of years for me, I'm thinking about pursuing a master's here in athletic training or something like that there. But honestly, I've kind of left some wiggle room because I honestly just reached the point in my life where I'm like, God, wherever you call me to do, wherever you call me to be, that's where I want to go. So right now, the plan is to stay in America and continue to be a union and to continue to grow here and kind of be built up. And then eventually we'll see what happens. So
I tell you, you are a gift. You are a gift to this community, and what you are leaving behind for us as people and a campus, your footprint, literally, because you're a runner, but your footprint is left here, and you will have made a real difference, an eternal difference in the lives of other people, probably those that you aren't even aware of, just by how you are living your life. And it's really fun to kind of be on the outside looking into that and cheering you on and encouraging you and watching you in that. I'm really, really thankful for your honesty, for willing to share your story. It's going to make, and it already is, it's making a difference in people's lives. So thank you for who you are. Thank you for being here. Oh, no, thank you. What a gift you are, truly. This is fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate him.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys too.
Look how far you've come from the stairwell to a podcast studio.
From both of us hitting on a person who became your best friend. I was at Cornerstone when he got commissioned out.
I know.
And then it comes full
circle.
I love it.
I'll be 45 and I'll be here in the next week.
Yeah, that's right. That'll be you on that little motorcycle.
Yeah,
you know?
I love it.
I love it, dude. You could pull it off, though. You could pull off the Peaky Blinders.
You could be Tristan Clark. You be the grandfather.
Yeah.
That's
crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, we would appreciate any feedback or questions or comments. You can contact myself or Ted anytime. You can find our email addresses within the show notes. We would love to see you on campus. You can sign up for a campus visit at uu.edu and just search Campus Visits. If you're ready to apply, guess what? We've got a fee waiver code for you. Just simply type in the word TALK, all capital letters, TALK. And you do not have to pay the application fee. All right, you guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.